In this tutorial, you will learn how to create a simple and satisfying dust effect and Unity that appears from your player's feet and makes movement feel much more polished. Huge thanks to Men Chhunly for supporting me on Patreon, and a special thanks to Zainab for joining the higher tier membership and helping support the channel. If you would like to access to exclusive benefits, be sure to check it out my Patreon link in the description. Now let's jump right into it. In order to make the dust effect, I will head over to my sprites folder, then dust, and you can see all of the individual sprites. So firstly, I'm gonna select all of them, go over to inspector, and we're gonna choose a sprite mode to single. Why? Because this is our single sprite sheet, and pixel per unit we're gonna choose something around 16. So let's choose 16 and filter mode to point no filter in order to remove blurry. So if we select any of them, click on open sprite editor, we can see that and also I want to change the pivot point. Pivot point we can see is in the center, but I'm gonna make it in the bottom so I can just spawn it from feet of this player game object. So I'm gonna make it somewhere around here, bottom, middle, center. So to change the pivot, we will select the individual sprites, all of them once again by holding down shift. Go over to inspector, pivot, and I'm gonna choose bottom. And after doing that, let's click on this apply button once again, and let's select the first one. Let's drag it into the scene view or into our hierarchy, and we can see it's just affecting with the light, which I really don't want. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna choose a sprite, basically go over to sprite renderer, materials, I'm gonna choose sprite default or sprite unlit default, which not gonna react with the lighting at all. So I'm gonna choose sprite default, so let's choose that. And now we can just make the animation, but before I do, I'm gonna name it to something like dust effect. So let's call it dust effect or dust particle. I'm gonna simply call it dust, just like that. And to make the animation, we're gonna select all of the individual sprite and then drag it top of this dust game object in the hierarchy, so it will make the animation right away. And now we have to choose the folder where we want to place it. So I will go to assets, then animation folder, and I'm gonna go over to other animation folder, and I'm gonna place the animation clip over here, and I'm gonna call this one something like dust. And after doing that, let's click on save, and if we go to animation tab, click on this play button, we can see the animation clip. Indeed, it's playing, sorry, as you can see. And also I don't want to loop the animation clip at all, so the first thing I have to find out my animation clip of this task. So for that I will go to project tab, assets, and then animation folder where we place it. So in my case, that was other animation folder, and I have the dust animation clip over here, as you can see. And let's uncheck the loop time. And also what we're gonna do, we're gonna make this one into a prefab, so we're gonna have the copy of it, and we can spawn it when we need that. So let's turn this dust into a prefab. So I'm gonna drag it inside this prefabs subfolder, which is in my case that is other prefabs. You can directly drag it inside these assets as well to turn it into a prefab. And now we're gonna delete it from the hierarchy if we don't need, but we're gonna spawn it when we need that, when we're gonna make this player jump. So let's open up our player script quickly, and let's grab the reference first. So the first thing we need, does a prefab game object. So I'm gonna come at the top of my class, and I will grab the reference. So I'm gonna make it somewhere around here. So we're gonna make a public, thus does prefab game object itself a game object. So we're gonna type game object type variable, and I'm gonna call it something like dust prefab. And also we need a point from where we want to spawn it. So you can create a point, you can simply select the player in the hierarchy, right click on it, create an empty child game object, and move it to feet of this player game object, and you can call it something like dust effects spawn point or spawn point of dust, just like that. I already have it the ground checkpoint, so I'm gonna spawn from this ground checkpoint. So I have the reference of this position, which is the ground checkpoint. You can see underneath my player script. So I'm just gonna spawn it from there. So to spawn it, let's go over to where we jumping. So we making the jump over here, and to spawn it we're gonna use this instantiate function. And this function, as a first variable, it's gonna take the game object that we want to spawn. So in our case that is just prefab, and the second parameter, it will take the position. So I'm gonna pass my ground checkpoint dot position, and the third parameter, it's gonna take the rotation. So we're gonna pass quaternion dot identity, means no rotation at all, and that's all we have to do. Underneath my player script I can see does prefab and it says missing. So I'm gonna go over to my prefabs, other prefabs, and I'm gonna take my does prefab and let's drag it over to that slot. And now we have the reference, and let's go ahead and we will play our game. So now if I make the jump, as you can see the dust effect getting spawned. However, it's laying around in the scene view, and if we go to our hierarchy, we can see we have the dust clone. So after some sort of time, we also need to destroy this dust effect itself. So before we do that, we need to make sure when we completing the whole animation clip of of that dust game object. So I'm gonna double click on this dust prefab by opening up in prefab mode, and if we go to animation tab and then click on this play button, so we can see a pretty short period of time, something like 0.2, it's 0.2 second, it's completing the whole animation clip. So and the 1 second will be somewhere around here, and this is pretty small time, which is something like 0.1 or 0.2. So after like 0.2, we just want to destroy itself. And if you want to go back in scene view, in hierarchy you can see the back arrow, so just click on it, and let's open up the script first, and we're spawning this does prefab at this point with no rotation, as you can see. So whatever we spawn it, basically the does prefab that we spawn it, now we're gonna take that one and we're gonna store it into a container or in another variable, and the variable type will be game object, because that's a prefab itself a game object, whole game object, and we can call it tame does prefab, just like that we can call it, and let's set equal to this. So what we simply doing, firstly we spawning this does prefab at this point with no rotation, and after spawning we taking that does prefab and we storing inside this same does prefab container or in this slot or in this variable, as you can see. So we also need to destroy the container where we store it, or basically where we store it. So we also need to destroy that. So in our case that will be tame does prefab, and to destroy we're gonna use the destroy function. So as a first variable, it's gonna take the game object, so we're gonna pass our tame does prefab, and the second thing, we can specify the time. So after short period of time, something like 0.1 or 0.2, I'm gonna go with 0.18 if, just like that. So this amount of time it's completing the whole animation clip. So after this amount of time, that the dust prefab that we spawn it will also be destroyed. Now if I make the jump, and we can see indeed after like 0.18, it just destroying the itself, basically the dust effect dust